Hey, this is Jeff from the Humans Connecting team. Our podcast is all about serving, supporting, challenging, and inspiring you to become a connected human. The content of our podcast is of a general nature, and consuming this content is not the same as seeking individual advice from a connection mentor, registered mental health professional, or coach. Conversations about human connection address loneliness. We destigmatize loneliness here at Humans Connecting. We do that by talking about loneliness openly. Loneliness conversations include a range of topics, which at times may be difficult for us to talk about, to hear, or to sit with. If throughout our conversation this is true for you, we encourage you to please contact a mental health hotline. The link in the episode description can help you find some immediate support from many places you may be in the world. Our advice to you is this: meet yourself where you are and how you are right now. If you don't feel up to it, we'll be right here when you're ready. We're glad you're here.
Okay, so I need your help to make this intro work. We don't have anywhere near the resources needed to pay the royalties to have Katy Perry's song Raw playing behind my voice right now. I suspect, however, that you do know the song, so I need you to have it in your head right now as you hear these words. Have you got it in your head? Good. It's time to step out of the cage that you feel life has you in, where you may need to perform certain roles to fulfill certain obligations that you may or may not have wanted in your life. It's time to bravely and courageously take a step towards living life as the glorious human you are now that you are in midlife. And we have the perfect guest to help you do just that. It's time to roar. And can you see how that really works if you've got that Katy Perry song in your head? Thanks for going there with me. Hello, it's Phil. Welcome to the Humans Connecting podcast. I'm so glad that you've chosen to press play on this episode. It is, as always, simply lovely to spend time with you. And if you are new to the podcast, welcome. You've chosen to press play on content that is designed to destigmatize loneliness and to help you improve your social health and the quality of the connection that you feel in your life. I'm Phil McAuliffe, and I'm a speaker, author, connection mentor, the founder of Humans Connecting, and your host. Our content is for you if you have decided that it's time for a change, whether that's because you've been experiencing loneliness and you want to take steps towards connection, or you're learning about the importance of being socially healthy for your overall well-being, and you want to take steps to improve and maintain your social health. We are simply here for you, no matter what you do for work, where you are in the world, or however you identify as a human. All the ways that we support you, your workplaces, and communities are through our website, humansconnecting.org. Midlife is a funny time. We think that we've just got a handle on things, relationships, family, career, and more, and then bam, midlife hits. And I'm not just talking about the physical aches, but it's the bigger existential questions. Existential questions like, is this all there is to life? I've done everything in my life right so far, and, why am I still not happy? These existential questions are tough. My intellectual crush, Dr. Brené Brown, writes in The Gifts of Imperfection, midlife is an unraveling, a time when you feel the desperate pull to live the life you want to live, not the one you're supposed to live. The unraveling is a time when you are challenged by the universe to let go of who you think you are supposed to be and to embrace who you are. Paulo Coelho writes that midlife is an important stage of life where maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you. So you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. Midlife is, to my mind, the sweet spot in life to know who you are and then to be who you are. We have the wisdom and life experience in midlife under our belts. And then, if all things go to plan, we have time to live the second half of life as who we are. Now, as inspiring as my perspective might be, I know that the unbecoming, the unraveling, the big existential questions are horrible, especially if you are a human in midlife. And humans in midlife, well, we have responsibilities. And I also know this beyond life as someone in midlife with responsibilities, I know that the yuckiness that comes up from those big existential questions and potentially the physical aches and pains, well, they don't shift until we sit with them. So in this episode, we're going to sit with them. And sitting with us today is Katia Vlachos. Katia is a Zurich-based Reinvention coach, certified meditation teacher, and the best-selling author of Uncaged, A Good Girl's Journey to Reinvention, which is a memoir that explores the themes of breaking free from social conditioning, making bold choices, and reclaiming one's authentic self. Katia helps people navigate personal and professional transformation. And with a master's degree from Harvard Kennedy School and a PhD from the Rand Graduate School, Katia has 30 years of experience as an expat, specializing in cross-cultural transitions and global mobility. She began her career as a researcher and defense analyst before pivoting to coaching. Her first book, which is called A Great Move, Surviving and Thriving in Your Expat Assignment, was named Financial Times' Business Book of the Month. Katia's work has been featured in the New York Times, Harvard Business Review, The Telegraph, Forbes, BBC Radio, and more. So in this conversation, you're going to learn how others' expectations of us in early life create the cages around us that we can notice in midlife. And you'll hear how we can begin to dismantle our cages and begin living life as who we are. And as always, as in every episode of the Humans Connecting podcast, you'll get great advice to help you through the loneliness that we experience, particularly in midlife. So now's the time in your head to increase the volume of that Katy Perry song as I introduce Katia into the conversation. And I shall see you on the other side of the conversation to wrap things up. Katia Vlachos, with the tune of Katy Perry's Raw ringing in the heads of the listener and the viewer that I told them to listen to play in their own heads because we can't afford the rights. Um, welcome, welcome to the Humans
Thank you,
Connecting
Phil.
podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here and a pleasure.
It's I'm really excited to have a chat with you because A, you're simply wonderful, and B,
And you.
I love talking about midlife,
Mm,
and
I'm not
the
gonna ask
the
why.
because I'm not in midlife myself, and but before we leap right into the good stuff, just in case the viewer listener is unfamiliar with your awesomeness as I am, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes. And Roar is like my number one Uncaged song. I don't know if you knew that already, or if, I don't think I
Didn't.
told you.
I
No, so
didn't.
it really is like number one. So,
So are you going to
um,
push yourself back from the desk now and this is like hit it? Like
yeah,
the
right,
microphone
exactly,
will fly into
exactly. Yeah,
your
I can't
hand.
afford
Yeah.
the rest. I think. No, but seriously,
Yes. Come on. Serious, Katia.
I call myself a reinvention coach, author and speaker, and most recently, I'm also a meditation teacher. So I like to wear many hats and to keep it interesting. But my coaching work, I work with a lot of women, some men, who feel like they haven't yet achieved it or yeah, reached everything they want in life. And I help them go after what they want in their next chapter. So we write the next chapter together. It's all around reinvention, which, as I think we're going to discuss later,
Mm.
happens a lot around midlife because
Yes.
for a variety of reasons. So I work with a lot of people in that age group. I am originally from Greece. I've been an expat for 30 years. I live in Switzerland right now. My first career, this is my second career and my passion. My first career was in military research and policy analysis. And I really found my purpose when I found coaching and I started writing my books. And, this is where I found the flow and the connection. And yeah, a sense of impact and contribution. My first book was called The Great Move, and it was all around how to make successful international moves, also based a lot, well, triggered by my experience, by, very much research based. And my second book, which was out last October, is called Uncaged, A Good Girl's Journey to Reinvention. And it's a bit more personal. It's a lot more personal. It is a memoir, and it's written around the themes of should I put it, like breaking free from conditioning and all the input we get from the outside that doesn't necessarily align with what's important to us, but shapes our choices and runs our lives. So breaking free from that, and then reconnecting with yourself and building from that foundation, creating the life you want, not the life you are expected to lead. So, trusting yourself and moving forward with that premise, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's written, well, obviously it's my story, but there's, like all memoirs, there's universal themes that appeal to people with very different stories. Right. So yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell.
Your book, Uncaged, was possibly the best book that I've read on the midlife experience. And it was so like echoed many, like save some of the nouns and the context, echoed some of my experience growing up, a world away from where you grew up.
Mm,
But the theme, as you said, about the conditioning and the shoulds that we can live by that come from that conditioning, whether that conditioning was overt and we knew it was happening, or it was subtle and covert. And it was kind of
mm,
just seeping into us as we, lived our life and were growing up and forging our way in the world. I'm getting right into it here now with this question, but what what is like the premise is, about being uncaged and
mm.
shedding those conditionings. What is it about cages? What are they, and how do
Mhm.
we get into them?
Right. So cages. Cages are like my definition, right, is all the ways in which we limit ourselves or we allow ourselves to be limited by others. And these can be, and under the umbrella of conditioning, right? These can be the beliefs we adopt very, very early on in life, about what's right, what's appropriate, what's good for us, what successful means, or what we have to do to attain certain things that we need, like being accepted, being appreciated, being loved, even. So there's certain things we learn we need to do, right? And I will talk a little bit about what that was for me. There are the expectations that are placed on us by society, by our family, our friends, by ourselves, right? Again, based on these beliefs. They're the labels we take on. Oh, he's the responsible one, or she's the selfish one, or whatever, the labels, the roles we play in
Mm.
our families, in our circle. And also, the cages can come not just from all these things, they can also come from circumstances, from like an event, something that happened to us, again, usually early on in life, that marks us because it generates a certain belief about
Yeah.
ourselves or about the way things work, right? You have one experience in I don't know, in elementary school, and you after that you believe, I don't know, I'm not lovable, or I'm not a good speaker, which was my case. Like I, bombed a
Yes.
speech and then I never spoke again.
Yeah.
So they can be also these little things, and cages are inside our heads, like these are like we create them essentially. We choose to adopt the beliefs, we choose to embrace the labels, and choose. It sounds like it's conscious, but it's really not, because we're so young. And then they shape the way we see the world. They shape our choices. They shape our trajectory, right? They become patterns. And the reason why they're sometimes very hard to see is because they're so old and they've become part of who we are. So we often don't even realize, the beliefs we've adopted are ours, right? I mean, they're not ours, right? We feel like, oh no, this is part of me. This is how I think, but it's something that we had adopted very early on.
Mm.
And there's a wonderful book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And there he talks about, the agreements we make very early on that we take on, and how, it's important to kind of break some of those and replace them by our own agreements, because those agreements are, what he calls our domestication, right? Our conditioning, if you will, is the way we are raised to become part of society. Yeah.
Think that's, for you, for a definition, you've pretty much nailed it in my book. But the I feel, viewer and listener, just like I was when Katya was speaking there, you may have been going through somewhat of a shopping list in your own mind about some of the cages that you are in, have been in, some of the cages that you've identified in your life. And some of those might be pretty uncomfortable. Some of those might be some pretty big, hefty headline events, circumstances, beliefs. And you might still hold on to them, and that's okay. Um, but for some of us, those um, the cages that we live within, the cages that we've built over our lives, can, when we realize, and Kachi will get into this in a little moment, but when we realize that, we have created them and that we're in them and we now have a choice, do we stay or do we like start to stretch out and like, I don't know. What do we do with cages? Do we just sort of like creep out? Do we
We
smash them?
dismantle them.
Whoa, dismantle. That's much more like
Try not to make it
much.
too violent, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
we
was like,
take them
no,
apart. We take apart the
smash
parts.
them. No, like some kind of
Sure, we
Easter
can.
egg. Yeah.
I mean, while we're roaring,
Yeah, well, yeah, we've set the tone right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a discomfort. There's a discomfort, and some of the particularly like some of the cages that I have been in, for instance, they're cultural,
Hmm.
um, and like societal, and some, by cultural I mean religious,
Hmm.
as well, about, this is what it means to be a man. This is what it means to, be successful. This is what it means to be a dad. This is what it means to be a husband, a good employee, a good boss, a good leader, all of these kind of things. And so what Katja was saying there could actually, you could have that shopping list going in your mind. If you're uncomfortable right now, it's okay. Discomfort is okay. And that discomfort could be something that you may have actually been familiar with, that may have been there for a little while. And, you've busied yourself, you've distracted yourself, you've kind of, hoped and wished and distracted yourself enough. So like if there are thoughts that they're way at the back of your mind. But now that they're here, please sit with the discomfort and know that the discomfort is okay, because it's an invitation to take a step. And that invitation um, is kind of comes from when we're uncomfortable, we're kind of compelled to change. Because if we're safe, if we're comfortable, like everything's fine, we don't do change. Please
Hmm.
take that discomfort and consider it a gentle nudge in a direction, that you get to choose what you do with that discomfort. However, if that discomfort is pain, and that pain is like, I'm trusting you here to know the difference between discomfort and pain. If you are in pain, please seek support. Press pause. Katja and I will be here when you're ready, but please go and seek mental health support from a mental health professional, to negotiate that pain. And the way that I describe the difference, discomfort is kind of like going up and down the stairs a few days after a heavy leg workout at the gym, or after a hike, and your legs are full of lactic acid and they're just a bit sore, and you're like, oh, as you're walking around, you're just like, oh, that's a bit of a sting, but you know that it's good for you. Pain is like trying to walk up and down stairs with a broken leg. So don't walk on a broken leg. Um, and but know that if at any time in this conversation that there's discomfort, allow it to be. Allow it to be, and know that you get to choose what you do with it. And in that choice, there's so much power. There is so much power in that choice. Okay, I just wanted to say that because some of the things that we'll be talking about, no doubt, that came up in Katja's book, that came up in my life, and viewer and listener, that came up in your life, that have been happening in your life, like they're uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable and they're hard to talk about. They're hard to sit with, but that's okay. But that's okay.
Yeah. And we all have them. Like
Yeah.
we all have cages. I have yet to meet someone who doesn't.
No.
Um, I have met people who think they don't, but they also do. Like even thinking they don't is kind of a cage.
Oh, can we
Yeah,
go
so
there?
you're not alone.
Can
Oh,
you
I would love
expand
that.
on
Yeah.
that?
Well,
Oh,
I've always found that interesting when I hear somebody say, well, this, and okay, it's rare, but I hear people say sometimes this doesn't apply to me, or I don't have cages, or I wasn't raised that way. And it makes me curious. It makes me curious because it's kind of human, right? I mean, we're all raised to be part of a society. We're all raised by someone, usually, whoever that person is, and there is a transfer going on. Like we do absorb uh beliefs about, I mean, we learn somehow how the world works, and what our role is in it. We don't kind of make that up. So um I feel like these cages are kind of a natural part of growing up and being socialized and being introduced to the world. So sometimes I wonder, even maybe the certainty that, oh, I don't have cages, I wonder if that is not a cage of its own, kind of keeping us from fully embracing whatever is there. What you said creates the discomfort, and just keeps us in a place where we don't have to deal with it. So
Mm,
anyway, again, it's when people say that, I say, okay, but keep an open mind as you listen to me, and just be curious. Be curious whether there's something, because I've written the book and I still discover cages all the time, right? It can be little things, it can be subtle things. It's often very, very subtle. Yeah. And just to give an example, I had to give a speech about the book, and it had to be, I had to learn it by heart. So it was, the organizer wanted me to learn it by heart. And oh my God, I agonized because I don't like learning things by heart anymore. I did that so much at school, talk about a cage. And and I really don't like doing that. And I tortured myself for like a whole week trying to learn this damn thing by heart. And I was, I had a session with a speaking coach to help me with the delivery. And he's like, why are you putting yourself in a cage? You really don't have to learn it by heart. There's other ways of doing that. But no, I was just so focused. I have to follow the rule. And this is what they ask of me. And that was a cage, right? But here I was talking about Uncaged, not realizing I was kind of doing this to myself. Just to say, they can be things, little things that wouldn't, you wouldn't think are, but they are self-limiting, and we
yes.
are really doing it to ourselves. So I
I,
didn't learn it by
I
heart.
well,
Nothing happened. I didn't learn it by heart. I found another way of like doing it. So yeah.
I'm curious. What was the other way?
So this person, this brilliant speaking coach taught me a way of like using cues, like that where one sentence has a cue that connects it to the next one. Like there's a logical flow to the talk. So you really like I really didn't need to learn the words by heart. I just needed to know the storyline, like the arc, and that's it. And I didn't know that because I had worked with a person like that before. So yeah.
Yep, I'm writing that down. So,
Yes, I can highly recommend them.
so Katja, why do we realize by the time that we get to midlife, why do we realize that we are in a cage or
Mm,
cages? How, like, why is it that we so often realize that when we get to midlife?
yeah. So that's a really good question. And well, it happened to me, but I also see it with my clients a lot. So you have conditioning when you're really young and you have all these beliefs, and you develop what I my meditation teacher calls the winning formula. So you realize what you have to do to get the love, appreciation, attention and all that, and then you do it. And that's your formula. I do this, I check all the boxes, I'm a good student, or I do all the things right, and then I get the good stuff, what I
Prize.
need. So
Mm.
you have your winning formula early on. And then we just get really busy taking, like, doing all these things and checking all the boxes, and not everybody, but a lot of us. And we don't have time to think about, is this really what I want? I don't know about you, but I was never asked what I really want. I was never asked what I'm passionate about. It wasn't a thing. And I didn't ask myself either, right? Because like nobody
Except
seemed
for
to
the
care.
Spice Girls. The Spice Girls asking us what we
Except for the
want,
spice.
what we
Yeah,
really, really
exactly,
want.
exactly. Yeah. Well, it was too late for me by then, I think. But we're just busy doing the things, and getting the job, and the degree, the good marriage, whatever it is,
Mm.
having the kids. We don't have time, and then we reach a point where, in my case, I hit a wall, or we start feeling like things are off, things don't like, because we're still in there. The real person that's under all the conditioning, under all the layers, that person is still there, and it's making his or her appearance. Again, in my case, there was like this rebellious side of me that kept kind of surfacing, but then I would keep it in check, and then it kept. So you start to feel like things are off, but that happens in midlife when things like quiet down a little bit, when the kids are a bit older, or where you feel more settled in your job, and then you see like, this is not really fulfilling for me, or this is not really what I imagined for myself. Also in midlife, you start to take stock, because you're getting closer to the other half of the life, and you're like, okay, what have I done? How do I feel about what I've done so far? So we start to ask these questions, a lot of us. And the third reason is there's often milestone events that can trigger that, that can trigger this transition, like a divorce, like the death of a loved one, like a diagnosis. These things really kind of shake you up and make you assess everything and start asking the questions: where am I? Is this really my life I'm leading? And that leads you to the cages, obviously, because very often we're not leading our life, or not fully leading our life. And yeah, so those are the reasons why I found this happens in midlife. I have had recently more and more younger people reaching out, like in their 30s or mid 30s, which I find very encouraging, that they're much more conscious and starting to do the work earlier. So
I'm curious, why do you think, apart from it being, a good sign or an encouraging, a hopeful sign, what what do you feel might be sort of driving that curiosity?
I think they're raised a different way. I think we were a bit more conscious, maybe, of all the ways we were limited growing up. So again, from my experience, my own family, but also my circle, is like we do ask them what they really want. We are more open to them expressing that. Um, and they are also, like, for some reason, it's more acceptable to ask these questions earlier in life, right? I'm in a job where I'm not happy. In our case, would be, oh, I need to suck it up. I need to work harder. It's normal. I don't have to love my job, and these kinds of things. In their case, it's totally okay to say, hey, this doesn't work for me. I'm going to move on to the next thing. There's no stigma in changing jobs every year, like there was for us, right? Oh, it
Yeah.
seems flaky, or you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think it's partly how they were raised, a bit more, with more openness and more inquiry, more self-awareness. But it's also, even if that was not the case, it's more acceptable. It's more normalized that you can move around. Like, I'm looking at the job area, but also in relationships, it's again more acceptable than earlier generations. That if you're not feeling good about something, then you need to move on.
Yeah.
Uh, you don't have to suck it up and stay, 20 years, or a whole lifetime, like, I don't know, our parents, in a relationship that doesn't work for you. So
I think
society's changed.
I feel there's something that we can learn from that. Because one of the things, certainly for me in midlife, and I can point to multiple kind of examples or multiple issues where this was the case, um, and basically, the process of being more me, and starting, and I'm desperately trying to avoid the onion metaphor. I'm desperately trying to avoid that. But yeah, I can't. And so I'm just gonna like I'm gonna go there. Please forgive me, everyone. But essentially, when my midlife crisis, when I realized that that's what, the thoughts and feelings were. First of all, I'm like, I'm too young for this. Like, I'm not like, but my the next birthday had started with a four for the first time, since I was four, and I was like, I don't want to be the cliche. This is terrible. But then also, it's like, I'm far too busy. I'm far too important. I've got far too many obligations. I cannot fall apart, and the effort that it took to keep things together. And I was great at it until like the effort to keep things together um, became overwhelming. And it was
Mm.
easy, it took less energy to let things go, to
Just be
sit with
you.
the discomfort. Yeah. To sit
Yeah.
with it than it did to kind of maintain the facade.
Hmm.
But for me, the onion, the vegetable that I'm desperately trying to not use as an example, but please write in next time, viewer, listener, with something else that has many layers, that is works across many different demographics and languages. But there was, as I peeled the onion, as I sat there and did what I needed to do with the help of a coach. Some of the things that were like uh, that my the thoughts and feelings of loneliness were inviting me to do was to become more me
Yeah.
and to embrace vulnerability. And on the Humans Connecting blog, the most recent, so when this episode comes out, the most recent article on the Humans Connecting blog is called Embracing My Vulnerability, or How I Embrace My Vulnerability as a Midlife Professional. And I share in there, like, I was a diplomat, and
Mm.
being vulnerable had a completely different meaning above and
Oh.
beyond like the vulnerability kind of thing that we know and love now, that gets kind of bandied around a whole lot more than when I was younger. That makes me sound really old. But and
It's recent.
yeah, yeah. But when for me, vulnerability was the thing that you really could not ever be in my job, because if you were vulnerable, the bad guys use
Yeah, of
that against my country.
course.
And any kind of vulnerability was to be absolutely avoided. So when the advice for me, and I'm going to use your parlance here, Katja, like when I started to sort of gently dismantle my cages, rather than Hulk smash, um, what was there? Like the first step was like, be more you. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I would love to. How? Without losing my job, without compromising the security of my country, without jeopardizing my wife's life, not like in the sense of like, an assassination, but like, our lifestyle,
Yeah.
like where we lived, how we lived, my job, my kids' education, um,
Hmm.
and my future career opportunities absolutely rested on me never being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the advice is like, you've got to be more you. And I'm like, yep, what's next?
Yeah.
What's the next layer? Can I skip that layer? And so, but then, as I
Mm.
wrote in the blog, I started experimenting being more me. And like the first step was like not wearing a tie to work.
Ha ha
And
ha ha. Hey,
and
it's
and
it's it's the little things.
yeah,
Yes,
and no one
absolutely.
noticed. No one noticed, so I changed my glasses. I'd put my weekend fun glasses on, and I'd wear my weekend as opposed to my serious diplomat glasses, but I'd wear my comfortable fun glasses to work. And then slowly but surely, and it's in the blog post, I won't retell it here. But that was the first layer, and then all like there was layers and layers and layers and layers and layers down. I guess, cages
Yeah.
and cages and cages and
It
cages.
it builds upon each other. Every step, right, that you make, it builds upon each other. Yeah.
And
But yeah, go ahead.
it
Yeah.
it has that momentum, which is just about to say that
Yeah.
it feels like, with that little nudge, like, sure,
Yeah.
it's one day you're not wearing a tie to the office, and then a little while later you're coming out to live life as a gay man. You're getting divorced. You're like, you're homeless. You're all it, like, is my experience.
Hmm.
But it's like somehow we can't ever, despite my best efforts, can't ever control how that snowball goes.
To an extent, yes, of course. We can control what we do, right? We can control our
Mm,
choices. Now, we can't control reactions. We can't control the impact. But the best we can
exactly.
do is just show up, as you said, as much of ourselves as we can bring. And I mean, I love two things about what you said. One is one of the things that holds most of us back from even like acknowledging the cages, even less dismantling them, is this: there's different kinds of fears, and what you describe is one of those, which is, okay, what's that going to do to the people I love? What's going to be the impact on them? We're worried about harming the people we love, and it's universal, really. I mean, you don't have to be a diplomat. it's
No,
it's
I just
if
have to
I
be
get a
human.
divorce, what's that going to do to my kids?
Yes.
If I leave my high paying successful job, what's that going to do to my family and our financial situation? There's all these different ways in which us making the changes is could potentially harm our loved ones. So that often produces a lot of guilt and keeps us stuck. But the other thing you said is baby steps build on each other. You gain confidence. Oh, I can do this. Or you see no lives are lost, right? You gain momentum. Oh, if I can do this, then maybe I can go a step further, right? With the glasses, and maybe I can go a step further, and then like divorce or come out, or it just builds from
Yeah.
there. That's why nobody has to start like it's a myth that reinvention or taking down the cages, whatever, it has to be like one big explosive move, leap, whatever. No, it's little things that you do every day,
One of the
right?
things that in agreement of what you said, and if you are a listener in Katja, pardon me, in Katja's book, she does talk about this is my word here, Katja, but like the anguish that you experienced as you knew that your relationship was over,
Mm,
but how um, you know, how separating, divorcing was going to affect those you love. And as you said that, I just wanted to say, viewer and listener, like as Katja is imparting that advice, this is not book learned advice. This is lived advice that Katja is sharing with us, and in a really beautiful, um, like with familiarity, with like an intimate tenderness. Katja, you shared that with us in your book, and it was like an exploration of that anguish that I felt was really, well, it really landed. It really landed
mm,
because I'd kind of not not seen it done in a way that um, that so mirrored my experience, like my lived experience of living and working internationally for much of the last 20 years as well. But I want to say the the thing that's coming up for me, and viewer and listener, if you've this is the first time you've pressed play on content of the Humans Connecting podcast, welcome again. But I just wanted to invite you to go back a couple of episodes to the episode with Mike Campbell, We talk about creating connected men. And whether or not you identify as a man, not really important for this point. But Mike had this really great point in that conversation about how we can be reluctant to take the first step when we know that change is needed and we're feeling the discomfort and we're kind of like, I don't know, but I need to take a step. We take the step, and then after we take the step, the way becomes clearer for us. But we don't know the way until we take the step. This is the big, sucky, terrible, shitty irony of this. And we simply do not know. But the
Yeah.
beauty of this, and I see this time and time and time again in the work here at Humans Connecting. Katia, I'm going to say that you probably see this time and time and time and time and time again in your work as a reinvention coach, which is the best title for a coach, by the way. And and like the way it becomes clearer when you take a step, the help and the support that you need has this weird way of making itself known after you take the step. And that step often
Truth.
sounds like acceptance, right?
Mm,
I don't like this. I don't want this to be lonely. Like, I don't want these thoughts and feelings to be part of a loneliness experience. I don't want to feel the emptiness. I don't want to be devoid of any kind of feeling. I don't like these, but yep, I'm experiencing it. And
yeah.
saying it to ourselves
Yeah.
is often the first step. And then, even then, a way can become clearer.
100%. I agree with you. I do see it all the time, right? And even this acceptance, it's a decision. Once you take a decision, then things fall into place. And it's not magic. It's just that we're not able to see certain things. What you like, what they say, what you focus on expands, and what you
Yes.
focus on, you get more of. You focus on all the uncomfortable and unhappy things, you see more of those in your life. Once you take a decision to accept that and move forward, then you start to see the possibilities. Like your mind opens, your mind kind of starts to how do you say, hone in on these things that you weren't able to see before. So yes, of course things fall into place, right? Of course you gain momentum, of course you notice what's your next step, but you have to take that decision and take that first step, like you said. Otherwise you just get more of what's already there, and it's uncomfortable, and of course it takes courage to do it, but I believe we all have that courage. We all have it. It's not like this person is, oh my god, they're so courageous or whatever. And I heard that when I published the book, how courageous it was and all that, and I'm like, yeah, but you all have that courage. You just need to make the decision. Just do it and just stay with it, like you said, even if it's uncomfortable, because you know that what comes next, right? Now you know what comes next, which is things fall into place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Before we take a quick
Mm.
break, Katja, I just simply want to say to the viewer and listener, Katja's point there about we all have the courage is really true. And I just invite you to go, and even if you just go and have a look, don't even press play on the content, but episode 15 of the podcast is from Jack Hedges, our sales manager on the team here at Humans Connecting, who said the fantastic words, 15 seconds of courage can change your life. And that's all it takes. It takes 15 seconds of courage. Um, like as if that's easy. It's not, it's not often easy, but it's not like years and years and years and years and years of courage. It's like 15 seconds of courage can change your life. If you want to go and listen to it, that's absolutely okay after this episode. And Katja will be back after this quick break.
Have you ever been with someone, perhaps it's been with your partner or maybe while you're at work or out with a group of friends. And despite having people around you, you just feel disconnected. And this is an incredibly common experience, one that I've certainly had many times. And when these things happen, we often don't really know what to do about it. Or worse, we think there might be something wrong with us for having that experience in the first place. Hi, this is Pete from the Humans Connecting team. And if you've experienced what I'm talking about, then you might find our Connection Starter course really helpful. See, these feelings, they're all just expressions of loneliness. And before I did the course, I didn't even realise I was lonely. And I certainly didn't see these feelings as an invitation to discover how I could become more connected to myself, more connected to my people, and more connected to the things that I'm most passionate about in my life. Now, the course itself, it's made up of a series of self-led videos, a comprehensive workbook, and a handful of external resources, all lovingly led and supported by Phil and the team here at Humans Connecting. By the end of it, you'll have your very own personalised connection plan that is specifically tailored to you and your unique connection needs. Look, it's made a huge impact on my life. So if you're curious about improving the connections in yours, jump over to humansconnecting.org and under the products menu, click on the Connection Starter course because you are absolutely worthy of it.
Welcome back. Katja, just before we took a break, we were talking about, the steps and how we take a step and, whether that's, as step of acceptance of our situation, acceptance, perhaps even of the cages that we have been in or the cage that we have been in. What, in your view, are the next best steps to take once the viewer, listener goes as takes a figurative look around and goes, crap, I'm in a cage. What is the next best? What are the next best steps?
Mhm. So, first of all, to reinforce what you said about acceptance, it is essential to accept where you are and how you got here in order to move forward. Because if you don't, what often happens is, and again, talking from personal experience, you can spend a lot of time going back and, oh, could I have done this differently? And a lot of us don't forgive ourselves for the choices we've made in the past. We tend to take a lot of responsibility for these cages and for what they led us to do. And I think accepting and forgiving allows you to, release, take off the backpack and free yourself and feel lighter in order to be able to start the new chapter. So just to say this is essential. And I mean, the next thing is, yes, you have a sense things are off, something's not right. Sometimes we can't quite put our finger on it. So it's important to sit and ask, the questions, try to figure out, okay, what are the cages exactly? And, if, maybe we go over our decisions, maybe we start where things feel off, what's missing here? Or, would I have made this decision today? Like, would I be where I am? Like, if there were no expectations, would I make this decision? Or try to notice, the stories we make up in our minds. Oh, a good mother puts her children first, right? A good mother doesn't divorce, right? Because you're hurting your children. Or um, the only way to be successful if you work yourself to burnout, right? If you have if you have it a bit easier than that, then you're not on the right path. Or there's all sorts of stories we make up in our minds. It's important to just notice and give yourself the time to really kind of try to understand, what is it that's driving your choices? Is it somebody else's beliefs? Is it fear? Is it obligation? Is it guilt? So much guilt, like guilt, duty, shame.
Shame.
um
Mm.
where and all of these are indicators that there's something that's not yours there. Like again, even just asking, is this story mine? Like, is this coming from me, or did I, kind of pick it up? Did I inherit it somewhere along the way? So getting clear on what the bars of the cage are, right? And if I go back to my story, I thought the bars in the cage were my marriage, because that's when I started realizing what was going on. But my cages started so much earlier. They started when I was raised to be a good Greek girl and self-sacrifice and put everybody's needs ahead of my own and check all the boxes and be excellent at everything. That's when it really started. And the marriage was just one, kind of reflection of all these stories. So well, two, I guess, if acceptance is one. Then once what's not working out for you, what was what's limiting you, um, a lot of people have no idea what's on the other side for them when they come to me. So I would say, let's get clear on what actually matters to you. And that can be challenging because we're so used to taking our cues from the outside that we're not used to to having a wide open space to make our own decisions. We're not used to thinking, what is it that I really want? Like I said, we're not very often asked. So it's important to actually connect with that, because that's what's going to propel us forward, because that's going to be the driving force. This is what's really important to me. These are my values. This is what matters, right? This is what's driving me. This is the difference I want to make in the world. They can be tiny or it can be bigger. It doesn't matter, right? But a sense of purpose, a sense of like a
Yeah.
why. So this is what's pushing you forward. This is what's, well, pushing or pulling, however you see it. Like, this is what you're looking out for, your goals, your vision. Yeah, like what really matters for you. Again, coming back to my story, this was huge for me when I went through coaching training, and we, in our second module, we articulated our values. It was I'd never done that before. I knew roughly what my values are, but I had never articulated them. And by seeing them, I was like, oh, that's why things are feeling off. That's why things are not right in my life, or were not right, because I wasn't honoring a lot of these values. Like, if I don't know, integrity is my top value, I wasn't honoring it. So of course things feel off, because there's this dissonance when you don't honor your values. Okay, what do I do differently going forward? How do I incorporate these values into my life? How do I let them guide my choices? So this, determine your north star would be the step. And then the last one I would say is, we talked about it, take one small step towards that life you want, ideally before you even feel ready to do it. Because if you're waiting for
Mhm.
everything to be perfect and you to be like perfectly prepared and perfectly confident, you're going to be waiting for a long time. And what we want here is imperfection that builds momentum. And confidence comes with action, not with reflection. So, whatever it is, that's the smallest step you can take that feels aligned with all these things we talked about in the previous step, then take it now. Don't postpone it. Sign up for whatever. Sign up for a class, or set a boundary with a friend, or have a difficult conversation with your partner, with your child. I don't know, whatever it is. For each person, whatever your cage is, the one small step that can get you to shake one of the bars. You know what I mean? It can be that small, just like shake, and then the next step will be easier, and the next step will be easier. But you just have the 15 seconds of courage, to borrow your expression, right?
Yeah.
To take that first step. Um, yeah.
I thank you. Simple 4 steps that contain a whole lot of um it's kind of like they're so rich and deep for really easily summarized 4 steps. For me, number three is actually knowing your values. and, knowing what your North Star is, knowing purpose. And viewer and listener, just a reminder, purpose and connection purpose has featured very prominently in the previous two episodes of this season of the podcast, and which incidentally also contain content about navigating midlife and connection to purpose, completely unscripted from Katia there. Katia, you walked straight into that and things, but I cannot agree with you more. If you don't know your values, like you have values, whether you know them or not, you have
Yeah.
values, whether you're living them or not, and taking time to get clear or even clearer on your values is time very well spent as you're taking steps to calmly and nicely dismantle the cage, or, whatever, like taking those first steps. It is so important. I'm highlighting that, I'm bolding it, I'm underlining it, I'm italicizing it, I'm putting it in Comic Sans, all of those things that just to make it step out, like stick out.
Yeah.
And because then you might actually be sitting here going, oh yeah, okay, great, Phil, great, Katja, like great tip. Know your values. How? How do I know my
I,
values?
yeah, thank you. I really wanted to say that because I was also thinking, okay, somebody who's not from, our world or who hasn't done coaching before, how
Yeah,
do I go about that?
yeah,
So many ways. I mean, if you want to go online and look at values assessments, there's tons, like little exercises you can do. You can think of a peak experience in your life, like a time when you felt really alive and on top of the world and really content and happy, whatever it was. Go into that experience. What was happening? What were you doing? Just like get into as much detail as you can. That experience is going to give you a sense of what your values are. You can go to the other extreme and look at all the things that annoy you, like your pet peeves, whatever, like things that really rub you the wrong way. Ooh, these are the values that are not being honored when that happens, when somebody lies to you or where somebody, takes your kind of jumps the queue or line. I don't know how you call it. These things that take you off. These are also an expression of your values. You can look at the people you admire in your life. What are their characteristics? What is it? What is the reason why you admire them? Indication of your values. So there's many
mm,
different ways to go around it. Like honestly, you just go and it's like, how do I how do I find out my values on Google? And you'll see a lot of ways to do that. These are just some of the most common exercises I use with my clients. But yeah, and it's fun. It's a fun process. It can be very revealing.
it is, and like uh, for us here at Humans Connecting through the Connection Starter course, this is in the part of the course about connection to self, and we suggest uh, getting curious in the same
Mm.
way that Kata you mentioned, and paying attention to when we have an emotional response. And when something pisses us off, something, it could be watching TV and something makes us cry. Like there's an ad
Mm.
on TV that, commercial, depending on where you are, an ad on TV that is like, why am I crying? To this, why does this get me in the feels? Why is it that, someone pushing in front, in traffic, or I was going to say in the line at the bank, but, we do online banking now. Or, let's talk about the olden days where we had to line up for things, and, why? And we are giving ourselves so much information, so much data, in each day that by responding with curiosity is for us the key. And the key to moving beyond the thoughts and feelings of loneliness, curiosity is key. So if a cage that you are in midlife is loneliness, the very first step for us, again, Katja, using your parlance here, is to get curious
Mm,
because judgment feeds loneliness and curiosity kills judgment. So if you
yeah,
want to feed connection, be curious. And
yeah,
if you want to feed your
absolutely.
loneliness, judge.
Yeah, judge away. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
100%. Totally
And
agree.
there are very few problems that can be solved by adding more judgment to it. Um, and I've
Are there any?
tried. I've been trying to find them all. But like I was like, here's a problem. I shall judge myself. No, no, that doesn't help.
Not working.
No, it feels good for a while though to sit in that kind of the guilt, the shame, and
Mm,
this is all I'm worthy of, and whatever. And I'm like, oh no, maybe I could be kind. Where's this coming from?
yeah. Hmm.
Or having that pointed out to me. So fantastic 4 pieces of advice there. I really just wanted to, Comic Sans the the knowing your values and the purpose and just the thread that's emerging through these certainly through these 3 episodes around finding our purpose and being in alignment in said in a very broad Australian accent there being in alignment is really we will know and Katja, you said the word dissonance. We will feel that ill at ease within ourselves when we're not
Yeah.
living in alignment with our values, within when who we are, whether we know our values or not. Katja, I'm
Hmm.
really curious to ask this question. Like sometimes when we go to do change, and we realize perhaps that we've been experiencing the thoughts and feelings of loneliness, and in midlife, and we need to go and do connection. For instance, as an example, or we need to, I don't know, like we need to have a tough conversation with a loved one, or we kind of get to the point where try as we may, and we really want our job to work for us. That really it's making us fundamentally unhappy, and we need to do something, and we got to make the change. In your experience, what are some of the winning strategies to keep us moving forward and not rebuilding and or returning to the comfortable misery of the cage that we were in?
Hmm. Comfortable misery. I love that.
Now, feel free to use as
It's a
my
really good one. That's a
there's a
really
comfortable
good one.
misery and loneliness when like because we
Yeah.
often
Yeah.
prefer to stay in our like this is a you know
Yeah.
just not a
Yeah.
nice thing
No,
to
for
sit
sure.
with, but can
Yeah.
be scary.
No, no, that's absolutely right. So you already mentioned, and I'm writing down because comfortable misery, because I really like that. Um, you already talked about 2 of them. My top tip is self-compassion, because you're not gonna be courageous all the time. You're not gonna make the choices that align with your values all the time. There will be ups and downs. There will be fear that shows up. There will be judgment that shows up, and there the perfect antidote that's going to get you back on track is self-compassion, being kind to yourself, appreciating what you've already done, like how far you've come, and starting over. Allowing yourself to begin again, making one step that's not really that, the one step back doesn't, mess you up if you decide, okay, tomorrow I'm just going to take another step and another step, and it's okay, whatever I did, also applies to the choices we made in the past that we love to beat ourselves up for, right? Being kind to ourselves about that as well, and just you keep going, because even with the mistakes you make, you notice now, you see that, oh, this choice was not really, it wasn't really honestly what I should have done, or I feel like I want to have done, but I'm human and it's okay. So self-compassion. You also talked about curiosity. What's out there for me? What do I want to try out? What aspect of me, what part of me have I been neglecting or have I been suppressing, that I want to bring to the world? So be keep being curious, it helps us move forward as well. um what happens, the third thing, what happens when we try to change things, like take down the cages, for example, is all these beliefs and these, we call them saboteurs in coaching. That's when they all come up, because they want to keep you in the comfortable misery, right? They want to keep things as they are because it's safe and it's familiar. So a lot of them, a lot of those stories, the old stories, are going to come up when you start to take steps. And again, that's something I do a lot with my clients. Once they start to implement things, we're ready to tackle them because we know they're going to come up. So tackle them when they come up. Be curious where they're coming from. Again, what are their stories? What are they telling me? Are they my stories? So dealing with those obstacles, those barriers is essential. Being prepared to deal with them, but also understand that it's a normal part of the process. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means you're changing, you're growing, you're taking down the cages. And it's normal that these things come up and you can deal with them, right? You can go through them and then move forward. And the final thing that I would say helps is thinking about what kind of systems do I need to have in place to make this new me. It's not really new me, it's more me than before, right? The old me, or whatever, the essential me. What is it that's going to make it sustainable and the new normal? Is it certain habits, certain routines? Is it eliminating certain things from my life that are not helping me right now? So, taking stock and seeing what structure can I create to support me here, to make this, just effortless and new. So how does that sound?
Reducing the points of friction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's little
For
things
me,
again. It doesn't have to be big.
no, and
Yeah.
and again, that comes up frequently in the advice of, when making change, and it's the, small steps taken over time lead to big results. Sorry
Mm.
for that little bit of Instagram philosophy there, but it's true.
Atomic habits.
Yeah, well, this is wow, James Clear wrote it. It must be awesome. But and for me, in the experience here, working for the last 8 years on loneliness and human connection, human disconnection, and the experience, the 48-year experience of being me, comes down the point there, Katja, that you made about self-compassion. I don't know about you, viewer and listener, but I find it really hard to be self-compassionate. I know the importance of it. I preach it. If by the powers vested in me by no one and nothing, I would give scripts um, for, self-compassion left, right, and center, and hand them out as if they were lollies, sweets, candies, insert, things that we like to eat. But for me, I find that really, really hard. And it is something that comes up time and again in our work here at Humans Connecting for people who are moving beyond the thoughts and feelings of loneliness and are choosing connection. And if you, Katja, if you, viewer and listener, have a suggestion that really helps me be self-compassionate, um, and to be honest with you, I'm getting better. I'm getting much better. I kind of, I found speaking to myself as if I'm 3 or 4 years old. Like as if it was one of our
Mm,
kids when they were 3 or 4 years old. I'm like, oh, you duffer, you fell over again. Up you pop. Come on, let's dust yourself off and let's go. And I could do it. I could do it. I could speak that way to, the people in my life who I love, maybe not so like belittling.
mhm.
Um, but for me, it can take some time for me to then find that self-compassion. Sometimes it's moments, but sometimes it's like days and weeks, and sometimes it's like the storm clouds. And when those storm clouds are around, and I'm really saying and speaking like some of the most horrible, nasty things to myself, that to me is an indicator of a loneliness experience because
Mm,
my my tendency is to deprive other people of me because I don't feel
yeah,
that I don't think that I'm worthy of my best. And I don't think that I'm like that others want me around. That's a horrible thing to
yeah.
say.
You're making assumptions, right? We all
Yeah.
do. You're
Yeah.
assuming other people don't want you around
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just
because you're
doing
not
them
worthy. Yeah.
I'm doing them I'm doing them the convenience of making that decision for them.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly, exactly. We do that all the time without asking, without being curious about,
yeah.
is this really the case?
Yeah.
All the time. Like whenever
Yeah.
I ask the question, oh, my husband's not gonna like this, or my wife is not gonna like this. Have you talked to them about it? No, but I know.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
just know. Yeah. So for me,
Yeah,
I just wanted to say that like self-compassion,
it's
self-kindness,
hard.
self anything, like it's so much easier said than done.
Oh yeah,
And I struggle. So
we all do.
slash at the time of recording, struggling,
Yeah,
struggling.
we
And it's
all
it's
do.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And thank you for being so open about it. Of course, we all do. And there's no I don't know, champion level self-compassion. It's a work in progress. And if you can be compassionate some of the time, I consider that a win. Of course, I struggle too. It happens to me too. What do I do? What really helped me be compassionate to myself about my past choices was understanding them. So when I understood what was going on through my mind, what was driving my behavior, I was finally able to stop beating myself up and be like, you know what, you did your best with with your level of consciousness, with whatever was going on in your life. You did your best. And it sounds easy, but it wasn't, right? But really understanding helped me. And the other thing is the opposite of what you tend to do, or we tend to do, the isolation, is to ask for help, to have someone in your life who will call you on your BS, if I may, and
So you can say
reflect
bullshit.
to
It's
you the
okay.
real picture. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I
No,
blanked.
we're
Um,
grown-ups. All good. Mm.
this is what you're doing, and it doesn't make any sense, right? We need them, like somebody to mirror that, or to clean the mirror for us, because what we're seeing sometimes is not real. It's made up by the saboteurs, or whatever those voices are in our heads that are taking us off track. So I think, yeah, and I know it takes some courage to reach out, and it takes going against what you're thinking right now. I'm not worthy, or whatever, or what your experience, what your emotions are. But it makes a huge difference, right? Because they take you out of your self gaslighting, basically. And what helps with gaslighting is validation of the true you, the what it is that's under the layers again, that you can't see.
You
So
that
two
is
things this
worthy
time,
of
not
love and
three.
belonging. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
100%, just because you are.
Yeah.
But again, coming back to the conditioning, you know it. We've been taught that we're worthy if we do stuff, right? Certain specific things. And if we don't manage to do them, then where is our self-worth?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reframing that. It helps to have somebody help you see that again, even if you know it logically, right? It's, yeah,
We can know it,
different.
but we need to feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Again,
we can feel
that's
it.
what's
Yeah.
really helped me.
Yeah.
But it's a journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn it. Katja,
I know.
one last question, and this is a question that I ask each of our guests at the Humans Connecting podcast. And the question is, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is in the midst of a loneliness experience right now?
Hmm. First of all, I would say I see you. It's not advice, but I see you, and I know you feel alone, but you are so far from being alone in this, um, because it's everywhere. And the piece of advice, um, what's again, I'm coming back to what's really helped me because I've experienced that so much. What's really helped me after many years in work and all that is to realize that I'm never alone because I have that person in the mirror, and that person in the mirror always has my back. She's always there for me. Um, and reminding myself of that really helps, even when there's no one around, even, but I have to feel that that person is worthy. And so that there's an intermediate step, right? So I always have me, I always have my back, and I am worthy because I always go back to that little girl, the one you talked about. I go back to that little girl. She's always been worthy, and I'm there for her, and kind of brings me back to today, and that connection to the inherent worthiness we all have. Am I making sense? Really
You
making sense
are.
to me, but I hope I'm making sense to you. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love where people take that.
Yeah.
And
And you hadn't told me this question, right? So this is really what what came up for me
I
right
never tell
now.
anyone the question. And
Good.
because
Brilliant.
what comes out is unscripted.
Yeah.
It's heartfelt. Listener, viewer, if you've been around a couple of episodes, you would have know that people take a pause. I don't edit the pause out because it's important to know that, if you're not able to see on YouTube, you're hearing the pause. Because
Mm.
generally what I see when, Katja, you did this too. Like you look up and then it's like people kind of drop down into some, and it comes from the gut, from the heart. It's
Mm.
not
Absolutely.
scripted. It's not, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
So thank you for
rehearsed.
this.
My pleasure. My pleasure. This is the gift. This is the gift that
Yeah.
you, Katja, have so freely given the gift in your book. And I want to give you an invitation to spruik the book in just a moment. But not only in the book, but here on the episode of the Humans Connecting podcast. It is always a privilege to sit and listen to and have a conversation with someone about big, hefty, meaningful topics in life, and particularly in midlife, as we navigate our way from one part of life into another. You've helped me do that, and you're helping viewers, listeners, and for as long as this content is out in the world on this podcast and other podcasts that you've done. I'm so profoundly grateful that
Thank you.
you have done that. You are doing that. And I'm just so grateful that you are you.
Oh, Phil, thank you. from the bottom of my heart, really. I loved our conversation. Thank you for the work you do. I think it's so important and beautiful. So very much appreciate you.
Oh, Katia, you're awesome. Where can people buy Uncaged?
Okay. Um, the easiest, well, actually you can go on my on the page for the book, which is uncaged.net, N-E-T. Where I have all the links. Amazon is the easy way to find it. I still have to admit I haven't checked the Australian situation for Amazon, but I will, so you can put it in in the show notes. But yeah,
We have
it's
listeners all over the world. It's okay as well. And
great.
people
But I do
who
need to do my homework with Australia.
come
Yeah,
on.
so you can get it through Amazon. The paperback, not the hardcover, because there was an issue with the hardcover. Thank you, Amazon, for that. But the paperback is available everywhere.
Oh,
And the
Jeff
ebook,
Bezos,
of course,
you,
the
you've
ebook.
you've got
You
one
know, it's
job.
like
Get it right.
no comment. Yeah, no comment.
But also, how can people find you if they feel compelled to shower you with praise and are
Oh God.
deeply interested in you and your work? And by the way, your amazing Sunday reflections that I get every Monday
Oh,
morning
thank
here.
you. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, I do these weekly Sunday meditations. Well, now they're bi-weekly, really. But yeah, they're like a 10-minute meditation that I post on Sundays. And so yeah, where people can find me, of course, my website, katiavlachos.com, super easy. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there. That's kind of my primary platform, but I'm also on Instagram, katia.vlachos. Again, all that is also on my website. Don't
In
use
the show
Facebook very
notes.
much. I'm there as well, and in the show notes, exactly. So, but I'm happy to connect with people. I love exchanging and yeah, talking about all these things. It really lights me up. It's my passion. So,
And
yeah.
watching or not watching, observing you on LinkedIn and the interaction that you have with your audience, it's amazing. It does the soul good, and
Oh,
it's
thank you. I love
Katja.
it.
It's just such a privilege and an honor and a joy to spend any amount of time with you. And thank you for being so generous with your time on this episode of the Humans Connecting podcast.
And likewise, Phil, thank you so much for having me.
The big thing that I feel is something that you can take with you as you begin to navigate potentially some more existential questions as you go through midlife or at any time, really. And that is knowing and living your values. And that was something that Rachel Cook shared with us in the previous episode. So, episode 26 of the Humans Connecting podcast about leadership and how navigating times of turmoil in life, whether that's at home, at work, wherever it is, like life is life. Knowing and living our values provides that kind of stability that help us, or that sense of home, beyond stability, but that sense of home, that sense of self, that help us navigate through life. And knowing and living our values came up again in this conversation with Katja. And I wanted to just really, really come back to that because in my mind, to my mind, that is so fundamental. Because from that, and the word that Katja used here was dissonance, and that sense of what did she say? That things are just a bit off. And oftentimes, what we're doing, that sense of dissonance, that sense that things are just a bit off, comes from what we're doing being different to what we know to be true for ourselves. So a great first step in dismantling a cage that you find yourself in, or any other kind of sense of discomfort, is to come back to our values and reflect, or to your values, as I come back to my values, and reflect on where there is a gap between, our values and what we are being called to do. And then once we identify that, that there is a gap, we then have that information and that awareness of the gap. And then we have a choice. We have a choice to make, but we can make that choice in with a sense of connection to self, that sense of grounding that comes from knowing and then living our values. The other thing that I picked up and I wanted to share with you was about a point that Katia made about taking small steps before you're ready. And if we wait until we are ready to make change, to take a step, big step, small step, a step, we could be waiting for a very long time because we're never actually going to feel ready enough. You're ready right now to take a step. Even when you don't feel ready, you're ready. And critically, a couple of things that Katja mentioned in the episode is that confidence comes from action. And I hear this so often in our work in Humans Connecting. I'm just not confident to take a step, so I don't. And then the consequence of that perceived lack of confidence is loneliness. Like, I won't do that. I will deprive myself and everyone around me of showing up, speaking up, being present, being seen, being heard, because I'm not confident enough. And I get it. I get it. It's really common. It's really common because, being seen and being heard is confronting. And it puts us at our edge, and we're not certain how things will go. But gee, a little bit of confidence will really help sort of tip me and give me the nudge and the confidence to actually be seen and be heard. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And I wish it did. I wish it was just like, if you did this, 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 and this, then you'll have enough confidence to go do that, that, and that, and that. But it doesn't work that way. You have to do that. Confidence comes from action. And so the other thing is that we can wait, and this is another point that Katja mentioned in taking small steps before we're ready, is that imperfection builds momentum. And because we can wait until we're confident enough and that we know that an outcome is almost guaranteed before we will then go and take the step and remove any uncertainty, remove any discomfort, and before we actually go and do a step. But you know this, it doesn't work that way. So I think really critically here, our values come back into play. If you know that you are, if you know yourself and then you are being who you are in the world, you are going to have many more hits than you will have misses. And the misses, the things that don't go well, are just so much more. Well, I don't want to say it takes the pain away. It doesn't take the pain away. But you get like you are able to kind of dust yourself off and keep going, being you when you know who you are, and then but you'll build that momentum, build that confidence that is needed to then keep on being seen, keep on being heard. And honestly, the loneliness that you experience in midlife, the loneliness you experience in any kind of stage of life for any reason, it doesn't stand a chance. It does not stand a chance. It doesn't, it doesn't stay within you for long because you have the tools within you. You have the, you know who you are, and you can always come back to you as you go and live your life. I hope that makes some sense, but there's a couple of things there that are really, 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 really important. If that didn't make sense, that wrap up, please let me know, and I'll do my best to kind of demystify what I just said there. But as always, we'd love to hear what you thought. What did you got from that episode? What are the lessons that you're taking with you? And I really do hope that there's some things in there that can help you become a more connected human, to help you become a more connected human in midlife and at other stages in life. That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me and the Humans Connecting team for this episode. And of course, we would love to hear what you thought about it. So please feel free to comment on YouTube or through the service that you're listening to this podcast on. You know how feedback works. And be sure to check our website, humansconnecting.org, for details about how we can help you, your workplace, and communities thrive through loneliness and get the connection that we each need and deserve. And finally, we are here to make a positive social impact. So if you are a business and or other entity and looking for ways to support humans to feel more connected, and you also are called to have a positive social impact, please check the link in the episode description to partner with us. Partnering with us, collaborating with us could look like advertising on future episodes of the podcast or collaborating with us in other ways. Either way, reach out. We're always open to having a chat. Again, thank you so much for choosing to spend time with us on this episode. It is always a pleasure to serve, support, challenge, and inspire you as you become a more connected human. We'll see you in the next episode.